everybody, this is Sophie and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here to talk about It Chapter 2 spoilers. And I was supposed to upload this earlier this week, but I did a recording in which I called a character not by his real name. I accidentally confused characters, and I don't think that's very professional of me to upload that, and so I wanted to redo it again. So, here to talk about the spoilers. I'm going to split this up into 3 videos. Part 1, Act 1, Part 2, Act 2, and Part 3, Act 3. And just so you guys know, whenever I say something, I'm talking about the movie. I'm talking in terms of the movie, in terms of what they had to work with from the book, all that kind of stuff. So if I say something controversial, it's because I'm using what was given to me, of what I know just remember, Stephen King was on cocaine. He was on drugs when he wrote It. And I'm just using what he gave me. And that's one of the reasons why this movie fails. It's just like Child's Play, the remake, where it tries sticking so close to the book in some respects that you're wondering, really? Couldn't you have changed this? I mean, the best Stephen King movie of all time, or one of them, is The Shining. And The Shining is nothing like the book. And that's one of the reasons why it's good. Sorry. I mean, books are books and movies are movies. And I think that straight up book adaptations have their place too. I appreciate when they stay true to the book. But a lot of the times, it's just not meant to be translated 100%. And so with this movie, we have like this very weird mixed bag. And in the opening scene, very weird mixed bag of what's adapted and what's changed. It's ultra realistic, and this opening scene, it sets a tone that the movie will be dark and brutal. One of my favorite visuals of the movie is the awful CGI-looking Pennywise grabbing for Adrian's hand. You can contrast this shot with that beautifully creepy one from the first one, where Pennywise is waving with a toddler's arm that he's just chewed off. That's all real, compared to the very fake-looking shot. I don't know if that was the actor. Excuse me, sorry. I don't know why whenever I make a video, I'm always burping. It's so weird. I'm never burping like this when I'm just like sitting around like writing these reviews. But then the moment I start recording, for some reason, someone needs to make a compilation of all the times where I've said, excuse me. It's bad. It's getting to be very bad. And so, anyway, I don't know if this is the actor or not, but it looks very fake and very blurry. And it's not as crystal clear. It's very dark. The whole scene is dark. I was confused where Pennywise was biting Adrian, because it looked to me like his shoulder, but apparently he bit his heart out. He should have made a good joke with the word heart in it. That's what Tim Curry would have done. And so anyways, I like this scene even with all of its flaws, but then you look at it from a bigger picture. Pennywise feeds on fear. The man purposefully taunting the obviously homophobic and violent-looking men in a dark, secluded area is not as afraid as his partner, who keeps trying to stop him. And now what I'm saying, I'm not defending these disgusting people who beat them almost to death. I'm just saying that his partner was more scared than him because he kept trying to de-escalate the situation, and his partner just kept cracking jokes. And so, like, which one of those is truly the one that's more afraid? I think it's the one who's trying to de-escalate things. And then this guy named Don, who's Adrian's boyfriend, he had to go then chase after him while he's down in the water, and he didn't know if he would end up alive or not. And so I think that Don should have been his victim, not Adrian. Adrian was never as afraid as Don, and he might have died anyways from just falling on rocks or just drowning. There's also a ton of balloons, because why not? There's just random balloons that come underneath the bridge, and they all look fake. They don't add anything to the scene, and it's a big fail, that moment. So, yeah, not really a big fan of the logic of that scene, but I got what they were going for. You know, they were trying to have Pennywise look really mean and nasty, like, oh, this guy was just a victim of a violent hate crime. Pennywise goes after him anyway, because Pennywise does not give an F. And unfortunately, it came across to me as being very flawed and not real. It just was a very fake scene. Again, if you didn't listen to my non-spoiler review, it reminds me of Kick-Ass 2, of the violence in that movie. There's one particular scene where the main character, Dave, he dresses up as this really outrageous white pimp, and he purposefully goes into this dark alleyway so that these gangsters will follow him, and then he has to fight them and learn to fight impromptu. And that's literally what the scene is in It Chapter 2. That's literally what it is. And then he just gets beaten up, and Hit Girl has to come and save him. That's what the scene basically was. Basically. And so, there's the phone call sequence I like overall. It's the only time in the movie I enjoy the fast-paced scenes. There's a lot of times in this movie where they'll try to do these seamless transitions. Like a character will have a flashback and then they'll like pan over and they'll suddenly be their older self, and you know, they're trying to be clever and tricky, and this sequence is the only sequence in the whole movie where that really works. I hate how in these type of movies we have to spend 10 minutes catching up with each character. Just give the essentials and be done. Bill's scene I like. The running gag about ending sucking for his books works perfectly because it makes me hopeful that the ending will be much different and cooler. It's important to note that the dark first scene and the gag about ending sucking sets up this movie for failure. Then we get Eddie, and his scene is funny, but it's kind of cheap looking. There I go again. This is so irritating. And then Richie's scene was fun. His puking was very funny, and I liked that he became a stand-up comedian. Next, we have my two least favorite catch-up scenes from my two least favorite adults. We have, this was the error, I called Ben Mike, and that's just insulting to me. Of course, it does make sense when you think about the first movie, how they gave all of Mike's character traits to Ben as a kid. And so Ben, there we go. Ben, the ex-fat kid, is now a nice-looking guy with a successful business and a hot girlfriend. No, he doesn't have a girlfriend. Why did I write that? It was probably the original, I think. I remember the original with John Ritter. He did a great job. The reason I don't like this scene is because it's a very Hallmark movie type scene. Even Sophie agrees. Lastly, there's Beverly. She's married an abusive man, and he thinks she's cheating on him since she answered a phone call coming from a man. Besides being very Stephen King-y with the abusive husband cliche, the scene drags on, and once again is very brutal, like the opening scene, telling me there will be even more brutal things to come. I didn't mention the Stanley scene yet, but also, Stanley kills himself. There's a very odd moment where we see a flashback of Bill butchering Stanley's hand and then him saying, "I promise," to Bill. Then we see he slit his wrists in the bathtub. This scene is very heartbreaking and brutal, telling me there will be even more brutal things to come. Hope it comes from the evil clown alien and not from boring humans. Subplot time, we get a semi-confusing flashback with Henry coming home and getting arrested. This scene was cool, and then we get this great shot in the future when he's in an asylum. He doesn't look like Henry though, he looks like Michael J. Fox. He sees a balloon and gets really excited until he gets taken back to his room. This scene is one of my favorites in the movie. Almost. It's the only jump scare that kinda works, but it wasn't scary. He sees the red balloon has come to underneath his bed, so he pulls at it viciously, and the suspense of when the balloon will pop and what will be behind it is amazing and unsettling. Then we see a very fake-looking zombie friend of his who got lit on fire by Pennywise. This scene is reminiscent of Langoliers, and then that shitty TV remake of The Shining, with how fake the effects are and just, having the bad guy talk to a dead person, like zombies, or like visions of these people in the real life. But I love the follow-up where the zombie is in the driver's seat of the car and Henry hops in the passenger seat, excited to go on an adventure. This is both hilarious and creepy. I would have liked to have seen a more elaborate escape for Henry. Maybe instead have Pennywise be the one under the bed. He and Henry escape together and it's a really fun scene. And then Pennywise doesn't escape and gets caught by the guards in like a funny way. And then at the end that friend would still be in the car and he would be the getaway driver and Pennywise would be the only one who didn't make it. That would be a very funny scene. And it would work. The comedy would work. Because a lot of the times in this movie there's comedy and it feels like these jokes were written by someone who doesn't know when to tell jokes. It feels like it was written by someone who had some clever jokes but didn't know the right times to use them. So when they all meet at the Chinese restaurant, I love it. They're very warm to each other and become like kids again. I feel this was a huge missed opportunity to not do an 80s cover of It's All Right, the song playing in this scene in the miniseries. Then there's a part where they read their fortunes and try to assemble a puzzle out of them. My favorite part of the scene is when Bill is talking to Mike and his stutter starts to come back. Then they worry about Stanley. Before they can leave, there's gross creatures emerging from the fortune cookies. This was a missed opportunity to have the creatures become circus animals. It was also a missed opportunity to have the creatures forcing them to puke them out. After all, they ate fortune cookies. And so why wouldn't there be creatures that are inside of them trying to get out? That would be just as even creepier. Then they start getting violent and destroying things, and the waitress appears nonchalantly. Someone says, "Check, please." This moment, once again, is a huge missed opportunity. They could have had the waitress peeking around the corner the whole time with a mean look on her face. Number one, she's seeing her restaurant's furniture get destroyed. Number two, in the first one, there were some very creepy adults who just stood around and watched bad things happen without doing anything to help. So I took her not caring as she's under the influence of Pennywise and doesn't know right from wrong at the moment. The thing with the kid is really good and funny, and I love it. The kid who does the stand-up line. As a whole, it's a weird sequence with lots of bad CGI. It has a lot of tension because of the weight connected to Stanley's death, and the scene in the parking lot is dumb. They all were rushed to come to Derry and then automatically want to leave? The reveal of Stanley's death would have been a great motivator for the group. Instead, it just separates them even more. I love how Bill goes with Mike though. Bill and Mike are my favorite duo of the movie. The scene at the end is really weird. There's no hotel workers around anywhere. again, very much like Stephen King miniseries, it feels like they couldn't afford to get an extra or two. So perhaps they could have had Tim Curry cameo as the clerk, snoozing in the back room with Bill's book in hand and a bottle of booze with him. The whole fogged memory concept is interesting, and kind of reminds me of The Shining, how Jack keeps saying that he feels like he's been to the Overlook Hotel before. It could have been creepier if Pennywise fucked with their memories and made them remember disturbing things, and now here's where I get to the controversial part, like the orgy. And now keep in mind, I'm not saying they show this happen, I am saying they imply it. You could have them all approach her in a room, and like a dark room, and you could have them all run at her, and you could hear sounds like tearing of clothes, and you could hear some angry lines from one of them or something. But the whole point of it is that it wouldn't actually happen, but Pennywise would make her think that it happened, and that would be really gross and creepy, and it would really make it a good strategy for Pennywise to do so that the group is not unified. I mean, just think about Age of Ultron, where Scarlet Witch gives them all those nightmares. Instead of that, Pennywise gives them these fake memories that could have been real but aren't. And that's what I would have done personally. I know it would have been very controversial, but I think that would be even more terrifying than anything else that they could have done with this movie. The scene where Bill trips out in Mike's apartment in the library is also really good, but there's one issue I have with it. There I go again. I'm so sorry. Mike says this is the way to defeat Pennywise forever. Well, that doesn't make the movie very exciting. Just like in Avengers Endgame, there's less conflict and less suspense because the characters already have this easy linear path they can easily follow to victory. Also, why would they care? I know it sounds selfish and shitty, but they aren't harmed by Pennywise other than when they're in Derry. Stanley kills himself in the book because of Pennywise, while living far away, making the threat of Pennywise more meaningful to them. Their pact they made as kids is meaningless. They don't remember it, they don't care, so why would it matter? They all have their own villains to deal with outside of Derry anyways. Even if Pennywise is dead, they'll still be around. That abusive husband, that big fat woman who's or overweight woman that looks like Eddie's mom, they're all still around. So this issue is partly addressed with Beverly saying she dreamt that they all died in the future, including Stanley. This was really cool since she saw into Pennywise's deadlights and gained something new she can use from the first movie, where we just thought she was just the damsel in distress. So she gained something from that experience that we really, I don't know why someone keeps calling me, it's probably a scammer. But the only thing is, Stanley's death wasn't because of Pennywise. Beverly should have known that. It's supposed to be a big reveal at the end via Stan's letter that he killed himself as an act of courage. But it makes no sense why Pennywise only manipulated that one little memory portion to make them all freaked out. If she kept this from them too, then why? They already had enough reason to continue with the mission knowing they might die if they don't. So, yeah. Now we arrive at the treehouse. The underground treehouse that Ben built all by himself in the span of one summer. This treehouse is unbelievably elaborate. There's no way he could have built it. When they go inside it, we get the start of what I like to call It Chapter 1.5. I saw the great benefit at first, using these flashbacks as a way to give Stanley, the boring character from Part 1, more likability and empathy or sympathy. This flashback is innocent enough. There's some hilarious banter about using the hammock and Stanley handing out shower caps so that spiders won't get in their hair. But this flashback has one problem: the de-aging. Stanley and Ben both look like they've gotten older. Everyone else's de-aging looks pretty good, but those two in particular stand out. So here's the big issue with the present treehouse scene. Again, I keep saying that, but I like the scene, but there's an issue, and that just represents the whole mixed bag quality of this movie. You get all these pros and all these cons with everything. So, Stanley's token, let's get this right, is a shower cap. Yes, that's right. The shower cap that could have meant for anybody that came from a place we never knew existed until part 2 is a token. When they exit out of the treehouse, it's suggested that they split up. They have to all get their tokens alone, or else. Yeah, that's embarrassingly lazy. To me, it doesn't make sense. When they made the pact, they did it as a group. When they first defeated Pennywise, they did it as a group. Here's something. Have Mike split them up by making them get lost in the forest. Have them steal their phones, too. This would have made it kind of terrifying, the lengths Mike is willing to go to enact his specific plans. After all, he already drugged Bill, and so why wouldn't he be willing to do this if he's so convinced that there's this one specific way? Something else that doesn't make sense is that, well, there's a lot of things that don't make sense, and I'll get to that in the second and third part, but something else I just thought of is that Stanley, at the end of the movie, says that he didn't come because he didn't feel like they would win if they weren't unified as a group. Well, how are you supposed to be unified if you're all split up finding tokens by yourselves? I mean, is that really something that a unified team would do? Split up? Like in every horror movie ever made? I mean, come on. It's stupid. It's stupid. You need to be more creative than that. And so, anyways, I like the first act. It's not the best part of the movie for me. I like the third act the best because it's the most fun and because it has a satisfying conclusion. The first act and the second act, the first act is a little bit better than the second act, so this is in the middle. So goodbye everybody, see you soon for part 2, act 2. Please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel if you want to see more of these videos. Thank you for watching though. I know that there might have been a few errors. I don't know, we get constant scam calls and they're very annoying, and so that's probably one of the worst things about this video. But see you soon for part 2.